Heyo, welcome to the Team SNG deck profile. Today we're going to be talking about the updated Zombie World Vendread deck profile. Make sure you guys leave us a comment, like, and hit that subscribe button down below to make sure you stay up to date on all the content that's coming out from this channel. Also, check out our Facebook page, link to that is going to be in the description down below. This deck was originally profiled early days on this channel. If you want to see the original profile, the link to that is also going to be in the description below. Let's talk about it. So basically what this deck does is, the whole point of this is it uses the generic Zombie World strategy to turn everything into zombies, locking a lot of decks out of their ability to play. It can go first or second. It's new stuff that it's gotten recently has made it a going second option available to it, and we're going to talk about them when we get to them. The whole point of using the Vendread engine in this, though, because a lot of people tend to use Zombie World with other decks, using the Vendread engine in this is that the Vendreads recur really well, allowing them to extend our combos a little further, and so I tend to like the Vendread engine in this. We don't run a massive Vendread engine, as you'll see. Alright, so let's start off with the monsters, as we always do. First monster we run is the main combo starter for the deck, and that is Uni-Zombie. We run 3 copies of him because, as I say, main combo starter. The whole point of him is that you can use his effect to pitch monsters from the hand or to send monsters from the deck to the grave, allowing you to set up stuff in the graveyard. To make it so that we make sure we see Uni-Zombie, we run 3 copies of Shiranui Solitaire. This is basically just an extra 3 copies of Uni-Zombie, letting us have 6 rather than 3. We run 2 Glow-Up Blooms. This is pretty standard. If this is in the graveyard while Zombie World's on the field, you can banish this, special summon a level 6 or higher zombie from the deck. If Zombie World isn't on the field, then what you can do is you can add that card to your hand instead. We do have 3 targets for it in this deck. The first being Doom King Baladrock, obviously. The second being Jacobolum, which is the new addition. And the third being Vendread Slayer. Obviously, you can't special summon Vendread Slayer, though, because he is a ritual monster, so that's more for... You're only going to search for Vendread Slayer, you're not going to be special summoning it. Next, we run 2 copies of Necro World Banshee. This is just our Zombie World Searcher, allowing us to run an extra 2 copies of it. It also protects Zombie World from destruction. As alluded to, we run 2 copies of Doom King Baladrock. Running 1's great, running 2's even better. It becomes more impressive, I find, if you've got a second copy on the board, and often there is a way in this deck can drop Doom King Baladrock on the opponent's turn, which can be really valuable. We run 2 Jacobolum. This is the new addition from Ignition Assault. Basically what this does is it lets us fix our hands a little bit. We discard a zombie to special summon this. So that could be we discard a Vendread card, like Vendread Strigus, to special summon this, and then we can extend using Vendread Strigus from grave. We can also discard, say, Glow-Up Bloom or Necro World Banshee to get their effects off as well. So this is just an additional way of sort of getting clunky cards out of our hand, or cards we want in the grave, into the grave. Also, while it's on the field, you can special summon a zombie from either player's graveyard, and by banishing this, and then you can... When that monster leaves the field, that monster is banished. So what you can do is you can use Jacobolum to take stuff out of your opponent's grave. And if you're taking stuff out of your opponent's grave, then you're taking that resource away from them, allowing you to potentially extend further. And you can utilize that resource for yourself to go into link plays or into anything else that you might want to go into. So that's why he's quite a valuable option for us. We run 1 copy of Gozuki. It is basically just a Foolish Burial for us. It's just another way of making sure that we can see our Necro World Banshee in grave, or our Glow-Up Bloom in grave if we need to. It's just here for the fact that it's just a useful card to have around. We run 2 copies of Mizuki, banished to special summon a zombie type from the grave. The old combo used to be that you would send this with Gozuki and then you would banish this to special summon something else, but that's changed a lot since those were the good old days, so this is just a nice card to have around, though. Now we're going to talk about the Vendread lineup. So, we run 1 copy of Vendread Core. Vendread Core can basically banish another zombie to special summon itself, so if you've got maybe an extra copy of something in the grave that you don't need 2 copies of in the grave, you banish one off, special summon this. and then that lets you extend. The other thing this does is if you use it on the field as ritual material, which isn't really the whole goal of this deck, it can go into the rituals, it's not the main reason though, but if you were to use this, then your opponent cannot target the card ritual summoned with card effects. Then we run two of probably one of the most important Vendreads, and Vendread Striges. Vendread Striges is so useful. What it does is, all you have to do is reveal a Vendread card in your hand when this is sent to grave to special summon this. So you can send this off, reveal a Vendread card, special summon this, and that gives you a free extender. Or you could potentially, if you're in a bit of a pickle, you could normal summon this, link this off for something in our extra deck, reveal a Vendread card, special summon this back, and then link two things off to get into a link 2 play, letting us go into things like Vendread Savior or into things like Vampire Sucker potentially. So that is a potential option that Vendread Striges does offer to us. Also, if it's used as ritual material while on the field, you can, after damage calculation, discard a card and draw a card, allowing you to maybe set the grave up a little further. Then we run probably the best Vendread monster for its grant effects to the ritual monster that uses it as ritual material in Vendread Revenants. We do run the spell Vendread Charge. This is typically what you'd like to summon off of Vendread Charge. So what this does is basically it's on-field recursion effect isn't why we have it, and that's why we only run one copy. But its ability is that when it's used as ritual material, from the field, the ritual monster that uses it gains the effect that once per turn, as a quick effect, you can target a special summoned monster your opponent controls and banish it. Next is 2 copies of Vendread Houndhorde. This is also a really useful card to send to grave because all you have to do is send a Vendread card from your hand to the grave to special summon this. So again, it extends. That's why you run multiple copies of it. But its other effect is that if it's used as ritual material while on the field, that monster gains the ability to target a spell or trap and banish it as a quick effect. And so if you manage to get Houndhorde and Revenants on board and then go into the ritual play, you're going to get a monster that can quick effect banish a spell or trap and quick effect banish a special summon monster. So that can be a really powerful play, and it can give the deck the potential to really break some boards. But, as I say, we don't typically go into the rituals too much. The only reason we might go into the rituals is to recur stuff from the grave and help set up the grave a little more. That being said, we do run 3 copies of Vendread Slayer. The biggest reason we run Vendread Slayer is when he's ritual summoned and sent from field to grave, he lets you send a Vendread card to the grave and add a Vendread spell to the hand. So what you'll do is you'll send probably Vendread Sturgis, reveal the spell that you search, and that will then special summon back the Vendread Sturgis, allowing you to have an additional extender. And you've probably linked this off, meaning that you've already extended a little bit. You've also searched out your Vendread ritual spell, so you can activate that, and you can do that. You can special summon another Vendread Slayer, so you can have a Vendread Slayer to link off twice in one turn. Alright, and that does it for our monsters. First spell card we obviously run is 3 copies of Zombie World. I will say the ultra rare is pretty. I always wanted to get one of the ones from Joey's World, but the problem is that they were so expensive. Now that Dual Overload has reprinted it, I was able to get 3 copies for obviously quite cheap, which is fantastic. They look so pretty as ultra rares. This just turns everything in grave and on field to zombies, and it also makes it so that your opponent and you can only tribute for a zombie monster. So it can lock your opponent out of stuff if they need to tribute into their monsters. Next, we run 2 copies of Vendread Charge. You could argue this for being a 3rd copy. All you're doing with this is you're sending a zombie from your hand to the grave to special summon a Vendread from the deck. So you could special summon, say, something like Vendread Striges, if you have another Vendread card in hand. And you could pitch something like your Glow Up Bloom or your Necroworld Banshee, so you get your combos going off that way. But you see, there is an argument to run a 3rd copy of this. However, the deck is kind of tight, and so I'm running 2 for now. But, as I say, there's definitely an argument for running a 3rd copy. We run 3 copies of the Vendread Ritual, Vendread Origin. This basically just lets us special summon our Vendread Slayer, and this is also typically what we're going to be searching for with our Vendread Slayer when it goes to grave, so, yeah. Also, while Vendread Origin is in grave, it can protect Vendread Slayer on field, and since a Vendread Savior, which is in our deck, counts as Vendread Slayer, then you can also banish the Origin to protect him. Next we run some draw power in Allure of Darkness. Just typical zombie darkness. Most stuff in our deck's dark. The only things aren't are Shiranui Solitaire, Gozuki, Mazuki, and Jacobulin. Everything else in our deck is dark, so we're typically going to be quite safe using Allure of Darkness. And we should often have something to banish off of it in our hand already. Next we run 2 copies just to help out the Vendread engine and also to bait out the Ash Blossoms. Pre-preparation of rites. Because Vendread Origin does actually name Vendread Slayer on the card, you can use pre-prep to search out the ritual and the ritual spell. Finally, we run 2 copies of Super Poly. It's just so good for breaking boards, it's good for going second, it's good for going first. There is one caveat. We do run the Rivalry Lock, so you have to be careful to activate this before the Rivalry Lock if you're going to go into Draco Nether Soul, which we'll talk about when we get into the extract, but if you're going to go into him, you do need to make sure you use this and then Rivalry, because if you do it the other way around, you can't actually go into Draco Nether Soul because he's a dragon. Alright, so that does it for our spells. On to our traps. First trap, as alluded to, 3 copies of Rivalry of Warlords. Just a really good card. This plus Zombie World is really oppressive because your opponent's going to be locked into a single monster. Meaning your opponent's got to find a way to get rid of this very quickly. When they do try to get rid of this card can come in handy. We run 2 copies of Dark Sacrifice. If your opponent was to activate a card effect that destroys a card on your side of the field, you can negate that effect, and you can send to the grave a level 3 or lower Dark Monster. I use it to send Glow Up Bloom on my opponent's turn to the grave and special summon Ballardrock from the deck, because Glow Up Bloom is when it hits, meaning that this allows us to drop Ballardrock on our opponent's turn and negate one of their effects. Alright, and that does it for the main deck. Let's talk about the extra deck real quick. The extra deck's kind of a key component of the deck now. It never used to be, because the main disruptions that the deck had were based in the main deck, but now, while the main disruptions are still in the main deck, there are some disruptions that are available to us from the extra deck. First card we run in the extra deck is Salamangreat Almirage. This is just a really, if you end up with a weird bricky hand, you can link off something like, as I've stated, Strigus. You could normal summon Strigus, link it off for Salamangreat Almirage, reveal a Vendread, special summon back Strigus, and then go from there. We also run 1 copy of Relinquished Anima. This is for if we end up in a weird situation where Glow Up Bloom maybe ends up on the field, and our opponent has something on their side of the field that we could take potentially with Relinquished Anima, we can link off Glow Up Bloom to make Relinquished Anima and then take something from our opponent's side of the field, which basically just helps us start breaking their board if we end up in that situation. We shouldn't typically, but if we do, this is an option for us to help us get through those sort of situations. We run 1 copy of Vampire Stalker, as alluded to. This is just generic zombie support. Zombie special summon from the grave, draw a card. That's really what it's mostly used for. Also, you can use her effect to target a monster in your opponent's grave, special summon it in defense position to their side of the field, which, if you have Zombie World on field, will count as a monster being special summoned from the grave, so that you can, a zombie being special summoned from the grave, so that you can get the draw off of her second effect. So, that can be quite useful, but typically that's not what you're using her for. You're just using her for her draw effect. We run 2 copies of Vendread Savior. This is just a way of helping us set up our grave. Also, it benefits from the fact we do run a Vendread engine, because his second effect to let us add back a card from the Vendread engine to our hand could be valuable if something like Vendread Charge is in the grave. We can add Vendread Charge back, and then we can use it on our next turn. Typically, we're using him for his original effect, which is that when he's in battle, you can send a monster from the deck to the grave, and he gains attack. He gains 200 attack for each of its levels. So what you're typically going to send is you're going to send Glow Up Bloom, and this will be a way of dropping Glow Up Bloom in your opponent's turn. Or if you've gone second, this is a way of dropping Glow Up Bloom later in the turn. We run one more link too, and that is the new Crystron Halqifibrax. Crystron Halqifibrax, everyone knows what it does. Tuner, non-tuner, special summons a tuner from the deck. It does negate that tuner's effects. However, with Glow Up Bloom, if you were to special summon Glow Up Bloom from the deck with using this, when Glow Up Bloom hits the grave, his effect will still go off because of the fact that his effect is negated while it's on the field, not while it's in the grave. So you could use this to get to your Glow Up Bloom if you've ended up with a bit of an awkward hand, or if you want to use, or if your uni zombies maybe got Ash Blossomed and you can't get to your Glow Up Bloom that way. This could be a way of getting your Glow Up Bloom onto the field. We also run one copy of Yukiona, the Absolute Zero Mayakashi. This is the new boss monster for the deck, really. It's so good. If a zombie monster is special summoned from the grave, twice per turn, you can target a face-up monster on the field, and that monster has its effects negated, and its attack is reduced to 0. And so that's really good because it does potentially let you negate multiple monsters on your opponent's turn. If you can drop this early in your turn and still have effects going off in the grave and you've gone second, then you could basically turn off half of their field, most likely. Also, Ballardrock acts as an interruption as well on your opponent's turn, so this plus Ballardrock means that your opponent have to be really careful about how they utilize their graveyard. So this can be really valuable for the deck. Alright, as alluded to, we run some Super Poly targets. The first is 2 copies of I hate saying this name, Dragon Necro Nether Soul Dragon. So we run 2 copies of him. Basically, he will let you destroy anything on your opponent's side of the field by giving yourself a token and turning that monster's attack to 0 and then running over that monster with the token. Starving Venom Fusion Dragon, 2 darks. Salamangreat Violet Chimera, this could really be changed out for anything else. I'm running this because I've seen Salamangreat at my locals quite a lot, and I'm sick of seeing them, so this is the only reason I run this. But yeah, so you can use whatever Super Poly targets you like. I still do recommend 2 of the Dragon Necros though, because they are really good for this deck due to the fact you're likely turning everything to zombies anyway. So the minute your opponent puts 2 monsters on the field, you just Super Poly both of them away into something that's super valuable for your deck. We do run some synchros to go with our tuners. We run 1 Red-Eye Zombie Necro Dragon. This is really a late game card. Late game, if you can get this on board, it's going to be massive because it gains 100 attack for every zombie in both players' graveyards. And if you have Zombie World on field, then this is going to get absolutely huge. And we also run 1 Beals of the Diabolic Dragons. Some decks have difficulty outing it, and so it could be a stopgap if you've sort of ended up with a bit of a janky hand. But you can manage to get this on the board. This could be a stopgap to help you out. Alright, so my final thoughts on the deck. This deck can be really useful. It can definitely catch some people off guard. It can take people out in the sense that they can't use their own combos, because their combos require their cards to be of a certain type, and this is going to try and change them into zombies, which maybe isn't usable for them. Doom King Ballardrock is probably one of the best boss monsters out there. Maybe not the best, but one of the best, because of his ability to lock out your opponent's effects, especially when combined with Zombie World. Jack-o'-Bolin is a good disruption card for this deck, letting you take stuff out of your opponent's graveyard and give yourself an extender, and then Zombie World obviously gives your deck all the power. The one problem is that Zombie War could be quite fragile, because if it is destroyed, then your deck kind of falls apart a little bit. Doom King Ballardrock's no longer causing negates. You know, your Yukiona is not really turning stuff off, but it's not the end of the world. If you do manage to keep Zombie World on field, obviously the Rivalry Warlords can be extremely powerful. Vendread Engine is interesting in this deck because of the fact that it does allow us to extend. It does allow us to recur really well from the grave. Not that the zombies can't do that anyway, but it does give us a little extra recursion, and it does give us some of the extra extension that the zombies can sometimes utilize. So, with all that being said, as I say, don't forget to leave us a like, comment, and subscribe. Check out the Facebook page. There will be test hands for this deck going up in the next few days. It should hopefully be up by Wednesday. But keep an eye out on the Facebook page. I keep that more up to date. So head over there, leave us a like there. And I will see you guys at the next video.